What did I even read this month? The past 4 days, let's be generous. The past week has just felt like alternate reality. I'm filming on November 30th, so we just wrapped up Thanksgiving week. I just feel like an alien today. So we're filming a video, obviously. That would be the best thing to do. What I'm trying to say is I'm trying to remember what I've read. I've been playing video games way too much. My brain is completely fried. So bear with me, girl. It's the holiday season. The holiday season. And whoop-de-doo and dickory-dock. I'm tired. So here's what I read in November. Now I have to think of an intro. Hi guys, welcome to my channel. This is Abigail's Bookshelf, where I will just do book reviews, and it won't be anything more complicated than that. I'm trying to meet my reading goal for the year. And bestie, it's not looking good. It's not looking good. I am at 87, 88 when the day is over. And I'm trying to get to 100. And I have a lot of novellas from the library, both sitting on my shelf staring at me judgmentally, and also on my Libby staring at me judgmentally. So I have, I think, enough books to finish the year and meet my goal. What I'm not sure I have is the willpower. I'm going to talk about this in my end of the year wrap up video and the video where I talk about what my reading goals for 2026 will be. But basically what I'm feeling is I don't feel like the way that this reading year went is how I want future reading years to go. And I'm just feeling kind of burnt out. And I feel like I'm trying to chase a number and not actively picking books that I enjoy. That's not fun. So we will be revamping. That said, I am going to try to meet my 100 goal because I'm so close. I'm so close. I can do it. Yeah, I don't know what's going to happen. Regardless of if I meet it or not, I will not be doing this again next year. 100 is too many. So anyway, enough disclaimer, enough yapping. You're not here for all of that. Let me just tell you what I read. First thing I read in November is Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. I haven't read it in a while, but the Del Toro movie came out, and so I wanted to refresh my memory, because one thing about me is if I'm going to have an opinion on something, it's going to be a well-informed opinion. I have done my research. I have read, I can cite my sources. When I'm a hater, I have a reference list. I wanted to read Frankenstein again to prepare for the chance that I didn't like the movie. And I was going to make a video talking about how badly it was done. But unfortunately, it was awesome. I loved it. It was a great movie. And I think it was a very faithful adaptation to the themes that Mary Shelley was getting at, especially in terms of the burdens and responsibilities of parenting, which is something that she could speak of from the front end and the back end because she lost her mother. Her mother died giving birth to her, and so she didn't have that parent. And then her father meant well, but he was a philosopher and not a father, and he just didn't know what to do. He remarried, and Mary was raised with a stepmother that she fucking hated. So she was speaking very much from the place of a child that had grown up without responsible parents. And then when she became a parent herself, she lost several children in their infancy, which was normal for the time period. But Mary, as with I'm sure any woman who dealt with that, any parent who dealt with that during that time, felt very guilty and responsible for that. So she was kind of talking from both sides of the experience spectrum there. And so she had a lot of critiques about parenting and what you were supposed to do and what your responsibilities were. And she saw it very much as a privilege and it should be treated as such. And I think Del Toro's exploration of the sort of failures of parenting and how those failures have created a sort of self-indulgent and narcissistic and selfish and uninformed male generation, I think was very timely and very spot on. And I know he was speaking a lot from the sort of Mexican perspective, which I don't know anything about and won't speak on. But I think that he did a very good job expanding this conversation that Mary Shelley started in that book. And I think also that Jacob Elordi's performance as the creature was perfection. I think it was the best I've ever seen. I just loved it. I loved it. And reading the book again, and so watching Elordi's performance of the creature as a child, and sort of, I think he played it like very effeminate, which I really liked, because I think the creature gets played way too much as being like macho and monstrous. And is not macho monstrous. He's like, you can't bear to look at me because I remind you of all your flaws monstrous. And that's very feminine to me. It was great to read the book again and find different things in it and to feel differently about it. I love that book. It's good every time. If you have never read it, I encourage you to try. I've talked about Frankenstein before in my previous videos. I also have made a video about Mary Shelley and what she would have thought of Del Toro's adaptation. So if you're interested, those videos will be linked in the description. Next up, I read The Black Tides of Heaven by Neon Yang. I read one Neon Yang book earlier this year, their newest book. I always get the name backwards. Brighter Than Scale and Swifter Than Flame, I think is the title of the book. Yay! Which was like a sapphic knight Eastern dragon princess. I loved it. It was so good. It was so good. But anyway, that was the first book I read by them. And so now I'm going back and trying to read some of their older stuff. And I think Black Tides of Heaven is their debut. I loved it. I think it was awesome. It's a series of novellas. I have like a group of all 4 of them, but I read the first one. I'm really excited to get to the rest. Like I have a reading goal to meet. But it was just such an interesting perspective on gender that I really, really liked. So basically the premise of this book, it's sort of a silk punk fantasy about these twin children of this horrible despot tyrant queen, and they are raised by monks, and it's just about them like growing up and finding their own way in the world. And part of this fantasy world is that children remain genderless until they are 18 or until they self-identify their gender. And then once they identify their gender, they go under like these magical like like gender affirmation surgeries, essentially. Not surgeries, but like it's magic, where their bodies will like turn into the gender that they like, the gender they prefer. And I just thought that was so cool. I think fantasy and sci-fi are such fun places to like really get into gender and explore like what is going on there and like what the possibilities could be. And I think it was so cool. It was so cool to see that and to have it so, it just like, it made sense. I was like, yeah, that track, like that actually make a lot of sense. I know I've said this before, but I'm going to eventually make a video about novellas. And I think that one of the things that I think a lot as I'm reading novellas is I'm like, is this author good at this? I'll get into it in a later video, but essentially I think that maybe this book would have been slightly better as a novel, just to like give a little more space for the plot that goes on. I feel like it was a little bit rushed. And so I'm interested to see how the next 3 books play out, because I feel like they covered a lot of ground in book 1 that could have been like 3 books. So I'm interested to see going forward how they kind of navigate that particular element. So that was Black Tides of Heaven, Neon Yang. Highly recommend. They are brilliant. If you like gender buggery, get into it. Next up is, okay, so this was the point in the month where I was like, I have to read 20 more books. Time to scan some novella lists. And so the next 4 books are books that I picked up to try to make my reading goal. And I say that with love and hate. Next book is called The Hole by Hiroko Oyamada. My review of this is, okay, sure, I read it and you wrote it. And I don't know. So essentially, the kind of plot of this novella is that Asa's husband gets a job close to his hometown, and so they move to kind of rural Japan, and live in the house next to his parents. This book was horror to me. In fact, one of the scariest things I've ever read. I remember when I started it that I was like really concerned with the lack of information that the main character Asa had about her husband. Like, she didn't know anything about him, and she was deeply uncurious about him also. They've been married for a while. I don't know quite how long, and I don't know if this is like this particular story or if I'm reading like a particular genre of like East Asian marriage horror books, but like I feel like I've read a couple of like books from Japan or Korea where it's about a married couple and they just like don't know anything about each other and don't care to know anything about each other, and they just like really are just like roommates, and it's very strange to me. I don't know. I found that very unsettling. And then when they actually like move to the countryside, like shit gets really weird and deeply unsettling and confusing. And I feel like if Studio Ghibli made a movie aimed solely at adults about how scary marriage was, I think it would like this would be the one that they would adapt because there was some really weird like surrealism elements and really strange. It was just uncanny. It was a really uncanny book. I couldn't find my feet in it. I really struggled with like understanding why anyone was doing anything, and like aside from the fact that like I wanted this woman to get away from her husband's weird family, I couldn't like I didn't really like connect any of the characters either. It was just it was weird. The vibes were bad. It was weird. I'm not a huge fan of this one. It was it for me. Next up, another novella that I had heard of this novella kind of like passing around circles for a while. I've read a lot of stuff very similar to this. So this was one that I did want to read, but maybe not one I would have picked up if I wasn't trying to meet my reading goal this year. So the next one is If Cats Disappeared from the World by Genki Kawamura. I liked this one. I think it was very funny. It was very charming. I liked some of the ideas that Kawamura was expressing about the importance that people put on certain things like their telephones or movies or like the ways that people distract themselves from the business of living. I really liked a lot of it. It started off a little bit too quirky for me. I was like, this guy's quirked up, but once it like actually like got feet and got going, it was really great. The premise of this novel is there's this unnamed narrator who finds out that he's going to die in months. He has a terminal brain tumor and he's going to die. And so he comes home from this horrible information, this worst doctor's visit ever, and he finds the devil in his apartment. And the devil is essentially like, if you will tell me one thing to erase from the world, I will give you an extra day to live. You're supposed to die tomorrow. But if you will choose something for me to get rid of in the world, like for everyone forever, everyone will forget this even existed, then I'll give you one extra day to live. I understand like the like he was like gonna die, and so like he was like sure, but that's like the worst deal I've ever heard of. Like I have to get rid of one thing for one day. I feel like it should be one thing for like a week. Like I feel like you should get a little extra more time. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. So each chapter is another day in this guy's life, and where he gets rid of one thing from the world. So it starts off like pretty tame. I think he gets rid of cell phones I think he maybe just says telephones. And he's like pleasantly surprised by how much better the world is without people on their phones all the time. And no one can call him and, all of this other kind of stuff. So he has this whole week and he has to choose things to get rid of. And in this process, he's also kind of going back over his life and reconnecting with certain people, or thinking about the passing of his own mother is one thing that he really explores a lot. And he has a very bad relationship with his father, and so that's something he's thinking about a lot. And it was very beautiful. It was very moving, especially towards the end. It was very heartwarming. I think it was a really good book to read this time of year when we're thinking about being grateful and what are we going to do next year. And it's like a self-reflective time. And so it was good to read this sort of self-reflective book. I've read some similar things to it. Like, I think it's called Everything You Need Is in the Library. Really cute book. In September, I read another book that was kind of the same kind of cozy magical realism kind of book. So it's kind of that same kind of cozy, thoughtful, self-reflective, magical realism kind of low stakes book. I enjoyed it. It was good. So that was If Cats Disappeared from the World. Next up is The Employees by Olga Ravin. Another one that I picked up to meet a reading goal. I don't know what happened. I personally feel it was a little bit oblique for my taste. It was a little bit too subtle to where I had no clue what was happening. And when I don't know what's happening or who it's happening to, it's very hard for me to give a shit. And the way that this book is structured, it's about this ship in space that is, I believe, trying to terraform and or mine and or gather resources from an alien planet. I'm not really certain. And it's about the people on board. And it's a group of humans and it's a group of essentially androids. They're sort of like bio robots where they have like flesh parts, but they're robots somehow. And the way that the story is told, it's about an investigation into something that happened on the ship. And so each chapter is a statement from someone on board to an authority. However, you can't tell who's talking. It just says like statement 4, statement 127, statement whatever. There's no information about who is speaking. There's no information about like the questions that are prompting these specific replies. And so it was a lot of them were like made no sense. A lot of them were so tangential that I genuinely could not understand what was going on in this book. And that's really a shame because I really liked the ideas and I really liked the vibes, but I didn't know what was happening and I didn't care about any of the characters. And so when like the final event happens, I don't care. And I don't like that. And so I think this one and The Hole were both more literary novellas. And I think that I've said this before, I don't really read very much lit fiction. And I think the difference between a sci-fi or fantasy novella and a lit fic novella is more that a lit fic novella is trying to play with like the more obscure parts of the craft. So like the vibes or like narrative style or narrative voice or like these sorts of things that like you talk about in like lit class in college, like lit 101, but you never really think about that much again when you're just like reading for fun. So I didn't love them. I think they both had interesting premises and I think they both had interesting ideas, but they just were not effective books to me in novella format. They were too concerned with like being different and being not like the other girls, and I just didn't enjoy them because I don't read poetry. So maybe I'm just somebody who doesn't like get style and experimentation. Like I want a story and I want the people the story is about and I want to care about the people in the story. And these books just like were not necessarily maybe concerned with that. And that's just a me thing. So that's if anything I ever talk about on this channel is interesting to you, even if it's negative, go read it. Like I don't give a shit what you read. I don't really give a shit what you like. Next up, The Salt Grows Heavy by Cassandra Call. Okay, now this is another one I picked for novella, but I really liked it, and I think it's because this is somebody who was writing a fantasy story and not somebody who was like trying to win a prestigious literary prize. I've read one other Cassandra Claw book, and I didn't love that one. I think it was a little bit style over substance. And I think I kind of also have that same complaint for this one, but that's like the only complaint I have. I think Cassandra Call is very concerned with how Call writes more. What are words? What do they mean? How can we put them in an order to make them make sense? I think Cassandra Call is more concerned with the sort of poetics of a story. And so sometimes I was reading sentences and I was like, girl, can you just get to the fucking point? Like, we really don't need this sentence to be this long. Like, what? Like, stop explaining, like, writing all these obscure metaphors about color and just move on. Like there were some times where I was like rolling my eyes. I was like, girl, can we just move along, please? But overall for me, I really enjoyed the characters. I really enjoyed the fantasy world. I really enjoyed the plot. So this is a story about a mermaid who is a queen, and her children spawn. She's a monster, and like very clearly a monster. She's not like, this is not Little Mermaid Disney. This is like, she is a freak monster and she has freak children spawn monster demon things, and they destroy her husband's kingdom. And so in the wake of this, she and a plague doctor decide, hey, let's just leave. And so they take off. And on their way, they bump into a really freaky Frankenstein child cult. I don't know how to explain it. It's a child cult, and they're led by these three doctors who like are trying to build people out of part. You have to read it. You just have to read it. It's a horror. Like, so just be warned. It is spooky and it is creepy and it is gory. It is gross. But I really enjoyed like the monstrousness of the main character. I thought that was a lot of fun. She's not like any mermaid I've ever read before. She is on land also. So like the mermaid aspect is kind of, her story is more about her displacement from the environment that she's supposed to be in, and how maybe that's made her a little bit more monstrous. Another great example of how gender can be so much more fun in fantasy. Plague Doctor is genderless, and I think the reason for their genderlessness is like revealed in the story. But I will say, one day somebody needs to make a version of Frankenstein where the creature is genderless, because I think that would be such a compelling story. And by the way, let me go on a quick aside here. So, one of the things I've always found very confusing about Frankenstein, and partly this is because it was written right before we had any concept of gender beyond this is a man and this is a woman, and this is what men have and this is what women have, and like, very binary, very traditional, very conservative ideas of gender. However, one major plot point in the book in Frankenstein is that the creature asks for a companion, and Victor begins to make one, and then he's like, no, I can't do this, because what if they start to have children? And so he destroys the second creature that he's making, the woman creature, and that is like kind of the beginning of the end for him, because the creature gets so upset about this. My question was always, why didn't you just not give her a womb? If you didn't give her a womb so she couldn't procreate, that would have solved your problems, and he could have, danced off into the wilderness with his hot monster wife, and maybe everyone would be alive. Great book, very freaky, very scary, very monstrous. Loved it. Great to read if you're a big fan of Frankenstein. Next up, Nettle and Bone by T. Kingfisher. I've been on a really big T. Kingfisher kick this year. I've read almost everything that she's written. I've definitely hit the bestsellers this year, and this was kind of the last big one that I needed to read, and I didn't like it. Sorry, I didn't like it. I have now come to the conclusion, having read a lot of T. Kingfisher books, that I only like the Sworn Soldiers series, the What Moves the Dead, What Feasts at Night, etc., etc. That series of novellas are the only ones that I will continue to read from T. Kingfisher. I think those are amazing. I've not really been a fan of anything else that I've read by T. Kingfisher. And a part of this is my problem, right? I've said before, I don't like fairy tale retellings. T. Kingfisher likes to do fairy tale retellings. That would be one thing. Like, I'm willing to try anything. I'm willing to get on board with anything if it's done right. I don't feel like these were done very originally or very interestingly to me. I also think that the only character T. Kingfisher has ever written that I liked is the Sworn Soldier. All of our other characters are so fucking boring. I don't care about their romances. They have no chemistry with anyone. And then the other ones are just like so quirked up that it's like they're really hard to like. I don't know what the secret is behind the Sworn Soldier, but I just think those are the best that T. Kingfisher has written, and that's the only thing I'm going to continue to read from her. But Nettle and Bone is essentially about this third princess who is trying to kill her sister's husband, because her sister's husband was previously married to her oldest sister, now married to the middle sister, and killed her. And so then the father was like, well, or the mother was like, hey, well, we have another one, so just take this one instead since the first one didn't work out. I have questions. So then the third sister is concerned, understandably, about her middle sister being killed, and so she embarks on this quest to kill the king of the neighboring nation who is married to her middle sister. I really liked the beginning, and then it just like went sideways from there, because the beginning was this really great chapter, the first chapter especially, where this young woman is building a dog out of bones. Like, she's in a bone pit in like a freaky ass forest, and she's like trying to use magic to make a bone dog. And I really liked that. I liked the darkness, I liked the eeriness. It felt a lot like the Sword Soldier books. But so that's her second quest. You didn't really get to see, I mean, she talks about the first quest later on, but it's not really that relevant. And so you start in the middle of her quest, and then she goes to the third one, and the witch is just like, okay, well, let's, I didn't expect you to do the first two, so let's just give up on this whole thing and I'll just go help you kill this guy. Which to me felt like I wasn't given what I was promised, which was her doing these tasks and trying to get this witch's approval. And I don't know, I think it just went a little bit off the rails for me plot wise, and I didn't find the other characters very interesting. I think she was kind of just like playing with a bunch of different ideas that she had and just kind of like cobbling them together, and I just don't think it worked. I think the most effective thing in the whole book was they stayed at this woman's house, and she had like this puppet master. This was like a literal puppet, like on her shoulder, telling her what to do all the time. I thought that was freaky as hell. I want a whole book about this freaky ass puppet, but I don't really care about anything else that was going on. So that one was kind of a bum read for me. Really struggled to finish it after I found out there were not going to be any more quests. They were just kind of walking around. The main character was also like very passive and very helpless and very naive, and I didn't buy it. Like, this was an older character. I think she was like in her late 20s or early 30s, and she just was so naive, and I was like, girl, what are you like? It didn't work. Nothing in that book really worked for me except for the freaky puppet. Next up is Fate's Bane by C.L. Clarke. Guys, I loved this. I loved it, and I will say, I think that I've not read C.L. Clarke's Unbroken series. It's been on my list for a while. I've just really struggled to like get into it the past couple of times I've tried to read it, and I'm gonna try. I'm like, I know I need to read it. It's part of the like Orange Sapphic trifecta. I've already read the other two, which is Part of the Orange Tree and Jasmine Throne, but I just haven't been able to get into Unbroken. However, I did read Fate's Bane, which is a novella, and it is, I think, I'm not very familiar with Assassin's Creed, but I believe that C.L. Clarke was inspired by the Viking Assassin's Creed.
Valhalla.
I felt those vibes. I'm not familiar with that, but it felt very Nordic to me. I really enjoyed the setting. So it's kind of set in it's a fantasy world, but it is very inspired by a sort of Norse, not quite, I wouldn't say Viking because they're not like ship raiders, but they are like these sort of pastoral tribes. Like, they aren't in castles and in big cities, but they're in like small tribe units, and I really liked that setting. I think we need more of that in fantasy. I like kind of like really like early medieval sort of period, like late Bronze Age, sort of old style pagan kind of fantasy energy. I really liked that atmosphere, and I think C.L. Clarke did a really good job of painting that culture and that environment really well. The premise of this novel is that there's a bunch of tribes, but there's two in particular that have been warring for a while, and one of them takes a ward from that tribe and raises this ward as a slave, but as like part of their culture in their tribe. And the ward and the daughter of the tribe chieftain fall in love. It's beautiful, and so the story is about their love story and the sort of complex political environment that they're working in. It's very slow. There's not a ton going on. It's a lot of talking, it's a lot of time passing very quickly. There was this particular thing that C.L. Clarke did throughout the book that I really liked, which is where they would use these like particular like hyphenated adjectives over and over, which I really liked. So it would be like rabbit swift or wolf hungry, and that would be like how they described things. And I really loved that concrete grounding of like language and how these people would think about their world. I thought that was a beautiful technique, and it wasn't intrusive and it wasn't complicated, but it was so effective in getting across the mindset of these people and the culture of these people and just enhancing the vibes. Like I've said, the vibes were amazing in this book. The ending was not my fave, but I understand what Seal Clark was doing. I respect it. I don't particularly enjoy that kind of ending. So that doesn't take off points for me though, because that's just entirely a personal preference. It was done well. I wanted them to just tell me what happened. So I loved it. I loved it. I really liked it. I wish it would have been slightly longer. I think there could have been a little bit more between Agner, who is the ward, and her family when she is eventually returned to her tribe. I felt like the relationships there were kind of like handed to you, like, oh, they're brother and sister, so they love each other, or that's her father, so she obviously loves him. And that's not true for my story. It's not true for me. I understand that that's what people think. That's how that works. And so I needed just like a little bit more relationship building for Agner's family. She hadn't grown up with them. Like she didn't know anything about these people. And so I felt like she relied too much on like, oh, well, these are just established relationships that we all know and understand. And so we don't have to do the work of explaining why these people care about each other, which is I've had that complaint in other books. I'm particularly thinking of The Tread of Angels by Rebecca Roanhorse, where like the sister dynamic, you're just supposed to be like, oh, they're sisters and they love each other and they'll do anything for each other. And it's not earned. It's not like shown on page. And I need that for me to care about relationships because I don't take that kind of stuff for granted. So my only complaint, I wish that would have been fleshed out a little bit more. I think that would have raised stakes for me because as it was, I was like, why would she give a shit about these people? She just needs to go back to her hot girlfriend. Because that relationship was explored and developed on page and I understood where it was coming from. I don't know if they are brothers. I don't really care about them. So anyway, loved it. Great book. Second to last is Murder by Memory by Olivia Waite. I've never read any Olivia Waite. I know she's kind of like a powerhouse in the sapphic community, but I just don't really read very much romance. I like romance in my books, but I'm not reading books where like the whole thing is that a couple gets together. So I have not read any of her stuff. I respect her game. So this one I listened to on audiobook as I was playing Stardew Valley last night. It was 2 hours, so another really quick novella to kind of get me add another tally to my chart. I hate talking about books like this, but that's just what I've been doing. I'm sorry. I'm gonna fix it next year. But for now, this is just what I'm doing. I seen this book around, and so I was interested in it, and I found it on Spotify. It was like 2 hours. I was like, okay, I'll just listen and play my game. And I will disclaim by saying I don't listen to audiobooks, especially fiction audiobooks, because I think I have undiagnosed ADHD. I've never been diagnosed, but I really struggle with audio processing. Like, I have to get my boss to write things down because I can't, if you just say it to me, I'm not going to remember. And so I just like don't pay attention to people talking to me sometimes. And that's like what a whole audiobook is. So I really try, I don't listen to them very often. I think that is 100, it is 100% a valid form of reading. It 100% counts. But for me, I really struggle with like listening. It's not something I usually do, but I was like, well, it's only 2 hours, so that I'll probably be okay. And then I discovered the second reason I don't like audiobooks, which is a fiction audio. I can listen to nonfiction because I can tune out and come back in and not really have lost much. But fiction, like you have to pay attention, and I am so bad at paying attention when I'm listening to. But the second thing that I found out I don't like about fiction audiobooks is I hate the man voice that audiobook narrators do. It pisses me off. It pisses me off. And like, I understand that they have to do certain things to indicate that people are speaking because like you don't have the visual cue of dialogue text. However, I've heard it before. There's just like this man voice that women audiobook narrators do, and I hate it. It makes my skin crawl. And she only did it with one of the characters, there was multiple men in the book, but only one of them got like this weird man voice. The other ones just like she just spoke in a normal voice. And hey, girl, just speak in a normal voice. Like we don't have to do if like a little accent is okay if it's light. I don't want like really heavy accents. I don't want like sorry if that's American of me. I struggle with listening and like when I am aware that something is a performance, I immediately stop enjoying it. And so the man voice like really distracted me a lot. That said, that's not what this review. This review is about the book, which I didn't love the book either. So I think that was also part of it. So the book's premise is that there's this woman, it's sort of like a Miss Marple sort of character, like an older detective, and she's on this ship that is in space that is going somewhere, and they've been on the ship for like 300 years. And the way that that works is there's some sort of technology they've developed where you can download your memory into a book so that when you die, your body dies, you can be re-uploaded into a new body. My question is, how many times can you be copied and still be the same person? The detective wakes up in a body that's not hers, and traditionally what they do is they will make you a new body, so you're basically like 3D print your own body. I'm assuming you can customize it. I don't know, they didn't really get into that. They also didn't get into like if people could just have natural children on board. That was not explained. And if you could just have natural children and nobody ever dies, that ship's getting crowded, so maybe they aren't allowed. I don't know. They didn't get into this. It was a novella. So anyway, the detective wakes up in this body and has to solve a murder. And she begins to suspect that the body she's in is the murderer. So I think there were some interesting world building ideas. I obviously was very interested in the memory upload and the body printing and like how all of that worked. But I do feel that this book was just about vibes. And I think it also felt to me like somebody who didn't write fantasy. I'm not super familiar, as I've said, with Olivia Waite, but I don't think she writes fantasy. I think she may write fantastical elements, but I'm pretty sure she writes mostly kind of like a historical thing. So I could tell, peace and love and respect, I could tell. It's sort of like a Gilded Age vibes, and like I kind of got that, and like it was okay, but I had questions about the world that were not being answered, and I felt like I didn't really care that much about any of the characters. The only character I cared about was Celia, and she was not even ever, and they just talked about her. She was not ever on the page. I didn't care about the person who was murdered. I mean, like, it kind of like kills the stakes, right? When you can just be re-uploaded. So, like, it didn't effectively work for me, I think. And the reason for murder, I think, was also kind of stupid. People murder for love and for hate, and that neither of those was the reason this person was murdering people. And again, I don't listen well. Maybe I missed stuff, but like it just felt really weird to me. I didn't really care for it. And the last one I'm going to talk about before I shut the fuck up, Woman Without Shame by Sandra Cisneros. I'm really enjoying it so far. I'm almost 30% through. I'm listening to it because it's poetry, and so I'm able to listen better in poetry. And there's like better places to pause because they're short poems, and so I can like pause it and go do something or like whatever and not get lost and forget everything. You don't have to remember in poems, they're for the vibes. So I'm listening to it. I'm really enjoying it. These poems in particular, I think this is maybe her newest release. I think it maybe came out this year. Spotify, I don't think really actually gives you that data. Oh, it came out 2022. It's buried. I don't know if you can see this way down here. So there's like this whole page. Way down here is the year it came out, 2022, September. But this is the first Cisneros book I've ever read or listened to. Sorry. Guys, I'm sorry. Please put your pitchforks down. Amy has already shamed me about this because Sandra Cisneros is from San Antonio, like Amy is. But I'm really enjoying it. I really like... I mean, it's called like A Woman Without Shame, so I like how she's just like saying whatever she feels. And she's writing this from, the perspective of, I think she's like 58 at the time of writing this. So kind of like her older woman perspective. And I'm really enjoying a lot of it. Like the way she's just like, I live at home alone and I fucking love it. And I, don't give a shit about anybody. And I don't want to hear about your stupid kids. I love that. I love that. I will say though, so the audiobook is read by the author and I don't love that. So I know it's poetry and like the author is supposed to read it and stuff, but like she has this like the way that she narrates is very much like like reading a children's book. Like she has this sort of cadence that sounds like a librarian reading a picture book to a group of toddlers. And so it's very disorienting to have someone explain to me about nude beaches and like gay clubs and saying the most insane words in this like storybook voice. It's very weird. I don't normally read poetry or listen to poetry, but I think if I am gonna like consume poetry, I guess I would prefer to listen to it because of the author's voice. Like usually the author reads it. And I think for me, because I'm such a visual person, I really struggle with like the formatting of poetry when I'm reading it. And so I tend to like read the line, and that's not how you're supposed to follow more punctuation. But I'm like, why are you putting it in this shape? So I struggle with reading poetry because of that element. And I started romantic poetry in college, and it was really hard for me because I just couldn't get the hang of like how to read it, and not just like feelings or metaphor, like the craft stuff, but like just genuinely like how am I supposed to say this sentence? That's a me thing. That is Women Without Shame by Sandra Cisneros. That's what I've read in November. I will have 12 books to read in December. We'll see how it goes. It's going to be a tough one. So thank you for listening. If you have not already, please like and subscribe. I hope. Sorry if that was incoherent.